Every time we get on a plane, we're putting our trust in this huge, complex system, right? All the safety checks, the engineering, the pilots. But there's this one safety feature that's absolutely critical, and I bet you've never even thought about it. It's a special language, a very specific dialect of English designed to keep our skies safe. So let's dive into this hidden world of aviation English.
And it all starts with this one chillingly simple sentence. We're going back to 1990. The first officer of Avianca Flight 052 radios this to air traffic control. They're circling in a holding pattern over New York, and they're running really low on fuel after a long flight from Colombia.
So, what's the big deal? Well, it all hangs on one tiny little word, just. See, was he trying to say we have only just now run out of fuel, which is, a massive emergency? Or was he saying, hey, it's just a small problem, we're just running out of fuel, kind of downplaying it? That tiny bit of ambiguity, that little crack in communication, it ended up having catastrophic consequences.
Yeah, so air traffic control, they didn't get it. They didn't hear an emergency, they just thought it was a routine update, so the plane wasn't given priority to land. And tragically, it crashed. 73 people lost their lives.
And the scary part? This wasn't a one-off thing. The International Civil Aviation Organization, you'll hear them called ICAO, they looked into a whole series of major accidents, and they found this chilling pattern. We're talking about everything from collisions on the ground to planes literally flying into mountains. And in so many cases, miscommunication in English played a direct role. It led to the loss of over 800 lives. The stakes just couldn't be any higher.
So obviously, after tragedies like these, the aviation world had to do something. They were forced to act. And this led to the creation of a universal standard, a common language, to make sure that a pilot from Tokyo can talk to a controller in Paris and there's zero confusion.
Now, this journey to a single standard, it was pretty gradual. It actually started way back in 1951 just as a recommendation, mostly because English-speaking countries were the ones building most of the planes back then. But it took a long time. It wasn't until 2003 that ICAO finally made it official, setting actual language proficiency requirements. And then by 2008, you see big players like the FAA in the US jumping in, requiring an English proficient stamp on every international pilot's license.
And listen, this is not ancient history. Even with the global accident rate dropping, ICAO's most recent safety report from just 2023 points out that communication problems are still a major factor in aviation incidents. So the takeaway here is that this is something safety experts are constantly focused on.
Okay, so what is aviation English, really? It's not just the English we're speaking right now, not even close. It's a super specific, rule-based system that's been designed from the ground up to get rid of any and all ambiguity, especially when things get stressful. The whole thing is basically broken into two parts. First, you've got what's called standard phraseology. The best way to think about this is like a super strict codebook. It's got about 300 specific words and phrases just for routine stuff. But flying isn't always routine, right? So for anything unexpected, an emergency, a weird situation, pilots switch over to plain English. This is the flexible part of the toolkit. But even then, the goal is exactly the same. Be crystal clear. No room for misunderstanding.
And you've definitely heard some of these terms in movies. Mayday is the big one. It's a life-threatening distress call. And it actually comes from the French phrase Mayday, which means help me. Then you have Pan-Pan. It's still urgent, but not immediately life-threatening. That comes from another French word, panne, which means breakdown. And here's one a lot of people mix up. Roger just means, yep, I got your message. It doesn't mean you're going to do anything. Wilco, on the other hand, is short for will comply. That means I heard you, and I'm going to do it. Big difference. Another huge piece of the puzzle is the phonetic alphabet. You might know it as the NATO alphabet. Think about it. Over a crackly radio, M and N can sound exactly the same. Same with B and D. So this system just eliminates that problem completely. An aircraft with the tail number FTN becomes Foxtrot, Tango, November. Zero chance of getting that wrong. So of course, with safety being everything, you can't just raise your hand and say, yeah, I'm good at English. No way. Every single international pilot and air traffic controller has to prove it, and they do that through some really tough testing. So how exactly do they prove they're proficient? Well, it's definitely not some simple fill-in-the-bubble test. This is all about a person's real, practical ability to communicate when it counts. This pyramid visual really breaks it down perfectly. ICAO looks at language skills as a structure you build from the ground up. The foundation, the base of the whole thing, is your fundamentals: pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary. Then, building on top of that, you have fluency and comprehension. And then, right at the very peak, is interaction, which is basically putting all those other skills together to have a real, effective two-way conversation.
So when they're testing someone, they're looking at these 6 specific things. 1. Pronunciation. Can people understand you? 2. Structure. Is your grammar correct? 3. Vocabulary. Do you know the words you need for the job? Then 4. Fluency. Can you speak smoothly? 5. Comprehension. Do you understand what you're hearing? And finally, 6. Interaction. Can you put it all together and respond the right way?
And the results of these tests get graded on a scale from 1 to 6. Levels 1, 2, and 3, that's basically for people who are still learning. The magic number, the one that really matters, is level 4. It's called operational. That is the absolute mandatory minimum for any pilot or controller working international flights. If you're not at a level 4, you're not flying. Simple as that. Levels 5 and 6 are for higher, almost near native skills.
Okay, so this is all great, but why does it matter more today than ever before? Let's get into our final section and connect all these dots to the future of flying. So why is this all so incredibly critical right now? Well, it really boils down to one single number: 660,000. What is that? That's how many new pilots Boeing says the world is going to need over the next 20 years. Just think about that. We're talking about absolutely massive, explosive growth in the airline industry. And where is all this growth happening? Well, a huge chunk of it, more than a third, is projected for the Asia-Pacific region. And that's a part of the world where, for a whole lot of people, English is not their first language.
So you see where this is going, right? We're heading into a future with way more crowded skies, more planes, more routes, and a growing number of pilots who are not native English speakers. When you put all that together, the need for a completely rock-solid, standardized way to communicate, well, it becomes more important than ever. It's not just a nice to have, it's absolutely critical. It really makes you think, doesn't it? The next time you're on a flight, you'll be thinking about the amazing engineering of the plane, but maybe, just maybe, the single most important safety feature on that entire aircraft is this invisible language. It's the shared code that lets thousands upon thousands of flights share the same sky safely every single day.